I'm Giselle Johnson, 42 years old, a sales manager for a tech company in Atlanta, Georgia, where the humid air clings to you and the oak-lined streets make everything feel heavier than it should. I've always been a plus-size woman carrying my curves with the strength I've built over the years. But that morning in my own living room, Ryan, my husband, made them feel like a target. His father had just passed away days earlier. I was still raw with grief, remembering the man who'd treated me like family. But Ryan stood there, smirk curling at the edge of his mouth, waving divorce papers in my face like a victory flag. "I don't need you anymore," he said. "I'm about to inherit $500 million. You were just the fat ATM I used until now." The words hit like a punch to the gut. My knees almost gave out like the floor itself had caved in. Anger burned in my chest, but beneath it was something colder, a clarity. I knew something Ryan didn't. That $500 million he was banking on was nothing more than a fantasy. I took the papers from his hand, signed them right there, and tossed them back. "File them yourself," I said, voice steady despite the storm inside. Then I walked out past the manicured lawn and the life I thought we'd built, feeling the heat of betrayal on my back, along with a strange, almost guilty relief. A few years before Ryan, my life looked nothing like this. I was married to my first husband, Daniel, a quiet, steady man who worked construction. He wasn't flashy, but he was the kind of person who could make you feel safe just by being in the room. He loved me exactly as I was, curves and all, without ever making me feel like my body was something I needed to apologize for. Then one morning, everything shattered. There'd been a car accident on a job site. The call came before sunrise, and by the time I got to the hospital, it was already too late. Losing him was like losing the ground under my feet. My curves felt heavier in the grief, like a burden I carried alone through every quiet room. Between life insurance and his company's severance, I ended up with $500,000. It was more money than I'd ever seen, but it felt like blood money cold in my hands. His parents, kind people in their late 70s, told me to keep it. "We don't need it, Giselle. You're young. Use it to start over." I tried to give more to his brother and sister-in-law, but they only accepted a small share, pressing my hand and telling me to hold on to the rest. And so there I was at 39, a widow with a small fortune and no idea what to do with it. I kept my job, throwing myself into sales meetings and client calls. Outwardly, I was functioning. Inside, I was broken. I'd come home to my little apartment, make coffee for 2 out of habit, and then stare at the extra mug until the ache in my chest became unbearable. That loneliness made me vulnerable. I told myself I was strong, but deep down I was aching for someone to make the world feel less empty again. That's when Ryan Carter walked into my life. Ryan Carter first appeared in my life at a tech conference mixer, 43 years old, a sales rep for a partner company. The kind of man who could light up a room with an easy joke and a smile that made you forget what you were about to say. We'd crossed paths before swapping quick hellos at client meetings, but that night he stopped, offered me a drink, and actually listened. Most men either talked over me or glazed over when I mentioned my job. Not Ryan. He leaned in, asked about my toughest accounts, laughed at my sarcastic takes on office politics. And then he said, "Your curves are stunning, Giselle. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." It was the kind of line that might have sounded cheap from someone else, but in that moment, after years of feeling invisible, it made me feel seen. Over the next few weeks, we started meeting outside work, grabbing drinks at a dive bar in Midtown, lingering over coffee in Decatur, trading stories about our pasts. Ryan told me he'd grown up in Atlanta in the long shadow of his father, a self-made real estate mogul. His mother had left when he was young, chasing the kind of lavish lifestyle his dad refused to fund. It left him with a chip on his shoulder, always trying to prove himself, always feeling like he came up short. One night as we walked the Beltline, I dropped a crumpled receipt without noticing. He bent down, scooped it up, and tucked it into his already overflowing wallet. "You're like a kid, Ryan," I teased. "Hey, I'm 43. "Thank you very much," he shot back, grinning. Small, silly moments like that started to make the hole in my chest feel less empty. About a year later, over ribs at a barbecue joint in Decatur, he caught me off guard. "Giselle, we're not getting any younger. Why don't we just get married?" I laughed at first, thinking he was joking, but his eyes were serious. My friends had warned me not to rush, but his confidence was infectious. I said yes, then he dropped another surprise. "Oh, by the way, I'm living with my dad. He's been sick, needs help. You cool with that?" I hesitated, uneasy, but told myself it was just another step forward. Little did I know meeting his father would change everything. Walking up to Ryan's father's house in suburban Atlanta felt like stepping into another world. The place was big, 3 stories of red brick with a wide lawn shaded by old oak trees, but it wasn't flashy. It had the quiet confidence of old money. Inside, the scent of cedar and well-worn books filled the air. Ryan's dad was waiting in a recliner propped up with pillows. He wasn't bedridden, just frail, moving slowly, but with a dignity that made you straighten your back. His eyes were warm as he reached out his hand. "Sorry to meet you like this," he said, voice tinged with age but still strong. "I'm not as spry as I used to be." We hit it off almost immediately. When I told him about my work selling software solutions in a market shifting faster than anyone could keep up, his eyes sharpened. "Tough business with everyone going cloud-based," he said. "Are you focusing on integrations or chasing new markets?" I was taken aback. Most people's eyes glazed over when I talked shop. But he got it. We talked trends, strategies, and for a while, I forgot I was meeting my future father-in-law. Before I left that day, he looked me over, not in judgment, but with kindness. "You're beautiful, just as you are, Giselle. Strong and capable. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." The words settled somewhere deep, a sharp contrast to the kind of backhanded comments Ryan sometimes made even then. When Ryan and I got married a few months later, we moved into that house. It made sense there was more than enough room and his dad needed help. Ryan quit his sales job to take care of Dad. At first, he was surprisingly diligent. I'd come home from long days at the office to the smell of burger sizzling or pasta bubbling on the stove. The house felt alive. But cracks showed quickly. Ryan complained that his dad was stingy, muttering that he could have built a mansion but chose this old place. I glanced around at the high ceilings, the polished wood floors, the sprawling porch, and wondered how he could possibly see it as lacking. Still, I brushed it off, not knowing those cracks were just the beginning. For the first month, Ryan kept up the image of the devoted son, vacuuming, grocery shopping, cooking dinner. Then, almost overnight, the effort stopped. I'd come home from 10-hour days pitching software to find him sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone, while dirty dishes crowded the sink. Within weeks, he'd hired a part-time caregiver to handle his dad's needs, freeing himself to do nothing. Nothing except spend my money. One afternoon, I pulled into the driveway and froze. Parked right there, gleaming in the sun, was a vintage Mustang. "Whose car is that?" I asked, my voice tight. "Mine," Ryan said casually, polishing a brand new set of golf clubs in the living room. The Mustang alone was $30,000, the clubs another splurge. Later, when I checked my account, my stomach turned nearly $60,000 gone in a single month. "You can't just take my savings, Ryan," I said that evening, slamming the bank statement on the table. He leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Dad's going to die soon. We're about to be rich. What's the big deal?" Then, like twisting the knife, he added, "I deserve a little fun, especially being stuck with a heavy wife like you." The words burned. My father-in-law had gone out of his way to make me feel valued. Now Ryan was cutting straight into the one place he knew would hurt, turning my body into a weapon against me. The contrast was sharp. The new bathroom renovation that had been his dad's idea after overhearing me mention a leaky faucet built with a walk-in shower for his own mobility. The rebuilt porch with the ramp. Same thing, practical, thoughtful. But to Ryan, it was favoritism. "Why is Dad spending all this money on you?" he snapped one night after seeing the new porch. "You're too fat to deserve all this attention from him." I asked for a new TV and got told no. I tried to explain that the changes were for his father's comfort, but he stormed off muttering about how I always got more. That night, I took back my bank card and locked him out of my accounts. He barely reacted, just shrugged and said, "Whatever." "You'll see, Giselle. Once Dad's gone, we'll have more money than we can spend." I wanted to leave then, but every time I looked at his father, frail yet kind, a man who'd never once made me feel less than I stayed. My father-in-law had a way of calling me into his study, a warm, cedar-scented room lined with photos of parks, community centers, and ribbon cuttings. One afternoon, he motioned for me to sit. His voice was steady, but there was weight behind it. "I'm working on my end-of-life plans, Giselle. Nothing morbid, just making sure things are in order. Ryan's not reliable. I'd like your help." For hours, we went through bank statements, property lists, and loan documents. That's when I learned the truth Ryan had never bothered to ask about. Years ago, his dad had poured millions into a community center in East Atlanta, a place for kids to learn, play, and stay safe. It failed financially, and to keep it afloat, he'd taken out a massive loan using $500 million of his own savings as collateral. If it wasn't repaid, the bank would take it all. "There's another account," he told me. "When I'm gone, Ryan will get $75,000. That's all I can leave him." I didn't know whether to feel relieved or saddened. Relieved because Ryan's fantasy payday would never come. Saddened because I knew the truth would crush him, and not in a way that might make him better. Before I left the room, he looked me straight in the eye. "Your worth isn't in your size, Giselle. You're strong inside. Don't let Ryan or anyone make you forget that." The words sank into a part of me Ryan had been chipping away at for years. Meanwhile, Ryan's behavior kept spiraling. The caregiver handled nearly everything for his dad while Ryan lounged on the couch, clicking through online shopping sprees. Gadgets, drones, leather jackets. I kept my distance, burying myself in work and in quiet evenings with his father where the conversation was about dreams and community, not things and money. But Ryan couldn't stand it. One night, seeing me hand his dad a fresh cup of tea, he snapped, "Why does Dad spend on a fat wife like you? I ask for things and get told no." The venom in his tone made my stomach twist, but I didn't answer. He was gone in an instant. Just days before his 80th birthday, my father-in-law died of a sudden heart attack. The house felt hollow without him, no warm voice calling me into the study, no quiet wisdom over evening tea. I sat in the living room staring at the photos on the mantel, him cutting the ribbon at that community center, smiling like he'd just won the lottery. My heart ached, not just from loss, but from knowing the time we had was far too short. I was still wrapped in grief when Ryan came home, but he didn't wear sadness. His eyes gleamed, his mouth twisted into a smirk. He tossed a stack of papers onto the coffee table. "Let's get divorced," he said flatly. The words hit like a slap. "What?" I whispered, my throat tight. I checked Dad's account. "There's $500 million in there. I'm set for life now," he said, leaning back like a king surveying his new kingdom. "I don't need you anymore. You were just the fat ATM I used until now. And now that I'm rich, I can find someone slimmer than you." My chest burned not from surprise, but from the sheer cruelty. All the times his father had gone out of his way to build me up, Ryan was tearing down in a single breath. I wanted to scream, to throw something to make him feel even a fraction of the betrayal he'd just handed me. But then I heard it, his father's voice in my mind. "Stay steady, Giselle." So I did. I picked up the divorce papers, signed them on the spot, and shoved them back into his hands. File them yourself, I said, my voice like steel. Then I walked out of that house, past the manicured lawn, past the life I'd tried to build, feeling the sharp heat of betrayal on my back, and an unexpected wave of relief. Because I knew something Ryan didn't. His $500 million fortune was nothing but a fantasy, and soon it would all come crashing down. A few days after I left, I was holed up in a small hotel near downtown Atlanta, scrolling through condo listings trying to imagine what my life would look like now. My phone buzzed. Ryan's name lit up the screen. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. "Hello!" His voice came through like a storm, panicked, frantic. "Giselle, what the hell did you do? The bank says Dad's account is locked. There's supposed to be $500 million in there." I leaned back against the headboard, letting him spin himself out. "You didn't know, did you?" I said calmly. "That money was collateral on a loan. It's gone. Your inheritance is $75,000. That's all." Silence. Then a shaky, 75,000. "That's it. That's it," I said. "You spent your money and mine thinking you'd be rich. You never even cared enough to ask your dad about his plans. You just saw dollar signs." He tried again, desperation creeping in. "Please, Giselle, forget the divorce. You've got savings, a job. I've got nothing. I'm 43 unemployed. I can't live on this." I didn't hesitate. "You made your choices, Ryan, and you made mine a whole lot easier. I'm not your safety net anymore." Then I hung up. A week later, a check arrived for $35,000, half his inheritance. Probably figured it wasn't worth fighting over. I deposited it without a second thought not to spend, but as a reminder. Through mutual friends, I heard the rest. Ryan went back to sales, got chewed out by bosses half his age, and quit after a month. Now he's scraping by as a part-time delivery driver, his savings shrinking with every bad decision. And me, I finally shed more than just his insults. The weight of his body shaming his greed, his control. It's gone. For the first time in years, I felt light. As for me, I found a cozy condo in Midtown with a balcony that catches the Atlanta skyline at sunset. I deposited that $35,000 into my savings, not to spend, but to keep as a reminder of my father-in-law's spirit. His belief in building something meaningful lives on in me long after Ryan's greed burned itself out. These days, I come home to my own space. No tiptoeing around someone's moods. No biting my tongue through careless words. The quiet is mine, and it's not lonely. It's peaceful. I still work long hours, still chase big accounts, but I do it knowing I stand on my own 2 feet. The biggest change, I no longer carry Ryan's voice in my head. The body shaming, the constant little digs gone. I'm Giselle Curves and all building something new. I've learned that your worth isn't measured in the eyes of those who try to diminish you, but in how you see yourself when you decide you're done settling. To everyone who's walked through this story with me, thank you. If my journey through betrayal, loss, and starting over struck a chord with you, hit that subscribe button. Share your own story in the comments, because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear that it's possible to take every cruel word, every broken promise, and turn it into the foundation for something stronger.